making a difference. That's probably the one thing we look at.
Very good. Very good. Louise, what would you say? I already mentioned your work in the homeless community. Talk to me about that. And do you support more than one charity?
We do support more than one, I'll say, organization, but they're all based on homelessness with children and families. So if it's unfortunately human trafficking, I'll just bring that up because that was talked about. If it was somebody that came to us from human trafficking needing funds for something, I can't promise that we would give them the money because most of ours is transitioning homeless children and families into permanent housing. And that was probably a really bad example because I'm sure if there's human trafficking, these kids are homeless. So
right,
you know what I mean.
Sure.
We have turned down organizations, but we would, and it's not a good feeling, but unfortunately, that's just what our mission is to get these kids in stable environments.
Very good. Now, how many different nonprofits do you guys support? Put you on the spot.
On a regular basis, besides Eckerd, I would say that there's two others that we heavily support, and that would be the Sharing Center and Family Promise within Brevard County. And that's the other thing with us. All of our funds stay specifically in Brevard County. They don't go outside of our county limits. I mean, Habitat has contacted us before. The Children's Hunger Project. I mean, we do those on a regular basis too, but not as much as, say, for you guys, Family Promise and Sharing Center.
Makes sense.
I would say the top two are Eckerd and Family Promise, no doubt. No doubt.
One of the things I read, Association of Fundraising Professionals, they did a survey just last year, and they said that the average donor gives to 7.2 charities a year. Wow. And so that's kind of shocking to people, especially when you think the average charity does 18 appeals a year. That's a lot of mail. But I have found, and I think it's just interesting just to think about trying to have impact, as Norman just talked about, and then focusing on the area you want to have the impact. That you mentioned, Louise. So very, very interesting. Tim, what do you think on this topic? How many charities? Of course, I read a long bio of about a half a dozen things you're involved in.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I do is, so the answer to your question is, I think right now we're at 23 that we support or I support. We do a lot of planning in the fourth quarter, and the process involves kind of the same things that Louise and Norman talked about is, criteria around effectiveness. What's the mission? Because there are so many nonprofits or charities out there. I look at it as sphere of concern versus sphere of influence. I'm concerned about conservation. I'm concerned about a lot of issues, but I'm really more focused on where can I have impact and influence, and what are the causes that kind of fall into that category. So one of the things that I think is important for folks on the phone, and I'll kind of leap into one of the questions you asked us, was when do we take a meeting? And I don't want to speak for the other two folks, but because this ties in, if I've agreed to a meeting, I've already vetted you. Because the one thing that is, there's time and there's talent and there's treasure. And a lot of times people in development think about the dollar piece, but there are other ways to impact outside of dollars. You can have volunteer hours within your organization. You can have what I call connectors or connectivity, introducing people to spheres of influence. Well, things that I really value are my time, my treasure, and my friends. So you're going to be in that category of groups that I care about. And then you're going to go to what Norman said, and that is the effectiveness and the tangible results that you can demonstrate. So while it seems like a lot, if you say 23, one, there's varying degrees of support. There's different types of support. And then there's 23 within kind of a fairly narrow field of impact.
Yeah, you mentioned when you're ready to take a meeting. Talk to me about that process. Is it people send you information first and then follow up by phone? What does that feel like? Why don't you start off that question for the panel?
Sure. I think I would suspect we're all overwhelmed with emails, and we all get on a list somewhere where development people know who we are. There was a Business Journal article this week about us and our philanthropy, and I got 5 emails within 48 hours. And so I tend to not respond necessarily favorably to emails because they tend to be a little bit generic. For me personally, either a personal introduction from somebody I know and is involved in the charity, or a phone call is much more effective. And the reason for that is an email is a list, and with technology today, you can send it out to hundreds of people with kind of a push of a button. I want to know somebody's kind of taken the time to reach out to me. And then the second part of this, and this is kind of tangential to it, but if by chance we connect on the phone, I can tell pretty quickly by their voice if they're actually passionate about what they do. And I don't want to speak again for Louise and Norman, but I want to know why you care. And because if you're going to ask me to care, I need to understand why you care. And that's just hard to do sometimes in an email. If you look at our Night of Inspiration virtual event, Dennis Phillips was the MC, but those people who got the awards, they were the steak to the sizzle. Like they were the stars of that show, and that was the impactful moment, in my opinion. So the way to approach me is in a very human way. Phone call, introduction, walk up to me at an event. I've had people do that, and introduce yourself. But I think email's a little bit cold. I get hundreds of them a day, and probably 10 a week from charities. So that's kind of a roll of the dice.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. Louise, what do you think? How do you like to be approached by a potential nonprofit?
I agree with pretty much everything that he said. I'd rather hear somebody's passion than try and decipher it from reading it. We still aren't very well known in Brevard County, which is kind of good with us, and it's even better for you guys. but because people don't think that the Realtor Association, it's called the Space Coast Association of Realtors Foundation, and people don't correlate that with homelessness or helping families and children in need. So we're still working, even after 9 years now, we're still working on getting the word out, but that's okay because, we don't have to have that huge presence in order to help the community, as long as the key players like you guys, and again, Family Promise and Sharing Center, and as long as those key players know that we're in the game, that's really all that matters. And with a membership of over 4,300 members in Brevard County, we have a very strong backing and support system throughout our association. That didn't really answer your question, but
No, but but you know, again, it's what I hear both you and Tim say is that you know, there's something the emotive piece just doesn't translate well by email alone. That there's got to be personal connection.
You have to have personal interaction with people, you know, like he said, because you want to feel their emotion for it and you want to know that it's something that they're sincere about. I mean, I remember the first time I met Stanley and I could just tell how much this was heartfelt to him, and it was just from a mission from us from then on, after getting to know Stanley and Tara and everybody else with Eckerd Connects, to do everything that we can to help them. And sometimes I'm chasing them down saying, let us give you money.
Right.
You know, here's an
And we
application.
appreciate that to no end.
The Christmas shopping.
Louise is so busy. She's president of the foundation, but she makes herself very accessible as well. And I hope that's because we did transmit our personal attachment to what we do. Thank you so
You
much.
guys are awesome.
Love it. Love it. Well, Norman, I want to kind of pivot a little bit.
It's 2020.
If you could talk to me about, first of all, you know, touch on how you like to be approached, and then I want to kind of open it up. When you meet with a nonprofit, when you meet with a development professional, what are your expectations? What's a good meeting and what's a bad meeting?
That's a great question. I'm just like Tim and Louise, is that if I had $1 for every time I got an email, I could probably write you an endowment check that would take care of everything for 100 years. I mean, you know, and then I also get, you know, you also obviously have to leave voicemails, and as Tim alluded to, you can pretty much tell in a voicemail if someone is trying to hit a quota are really passionate about what they're talking about. So traditionally, I'm the same way. If I've set a meeting with you, you don't have to give me the credibility speech because I've already done that vetting. I've already vetted you, and I certainly don't want to come across arrogant in any fashion. But yet, time is my most valuable commodity. So if I'm meeting with somebody, that means I'm taking time away from my family or friends or from my businesses and stuff like that. So it's important to me. So that's traditionally vetting. I've vetted you. You know, we meet, or you come in my office, or I come to your office, or we meet out for lunch, or whatever it is. Traditionally, it is, as Tim alluded to, is how passionate are you? How passionate are you? How well do you know your organization? So you'd be surprised how many meetings I've been in where I do some cursory reviews on the internet and do some Googling and read some articles, and I know more than the person's I'm meeting with. And you know, I don't think that they're invested. And at the end of the day, if you're asking for one word that comes up is, I don't need any help being a hypocrite. I really have that covered. Okay. But if you're not invested, why do you expect me to be invested? So really that's it is, you know, when I take a meeting, I vetted you, sit down, let's talk about, you know, what you're trying to accomplish, you know, and again, is this one of the first things I would do is I would understand what the person's passions are, because if they don't share the same passion, that's going to be you know, and again, I feel bad. I was raised Catholic. I'm non-denominational now, but I was raised Catholic. So I feel guilty when I don't give to a charity. But at the end of the day, we support 8. So we probably fall right in that category. So we support about 8 different nonprofits or missions. So I feel bad but you know, there's a certain point where you have to say no. So if I don't share the same passion, you know, it's going to be tough for you to quote, you know, pitch me.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Louise, do you like to be pitched? Talk to me about the meetings you have.
I think that I would go along with Norman and say that I want to feel the passion more than it be a sales pitch of some sort. I want to know that what it is that the people in your world are doing is actually making a difference and walking the walk. And one way that we see the results from that, I was thinking on the tail end of everything that we're talking about now. I mean, you don't just have the initial interaction, but the tail end of it is I'm constantly asking Stanley and people for letters substantiate or supporting what it is that the money is going towards. And so every now and then Stanley and his staff will send us thank you notes from the families that we've helped. And I'll share those with our realtor membership so that they see that the money that they're putting in is actually making a difference. So, I mean, I don't think it would be a vetting, but seeing the results and like the other gentleman said, I mean, we've already checked into all of that before we approve anything, but seeing the results once we've donated the money is what keeps the momentum up and everybody wanting to continue more.
Very good. Very good. Tim, what's your thought about the pitch? Do you like to get pitched or do you rather have a conversation?
Yeah, so this is a great topic because I think if you're pulling out a brochure in the first 60 seconds of our meeting, we're probably in trouble. And, then it's a pitch. So I like it to be a conversation. Everybody said we've already vetted the group before we meet with you. So we probably know what the organization and what you're going to go through in the brochure. I really want to have a conversation, and I want to have a conversation about, where do we fit in? How can we fit in? And again, a lot of it goes back to just the passion. And is the person interested in, us and what value we can bring, as opposed to here's 5 levels to a sponsorship. Which one do you want? And so to me, they're very low key, because one of the things that happens is I'm going to test drive you. So we're gonna if I decide that I'll support you this time, or I'll agree to whatever we're discussing, we're going to make a smaller contribution, and we're going to see what you do, how you do it, where things go. And so it's the beginning of a relationship. And if you come in thinking I'm going to pitch you on these 5 levels of sponsorship, you're missing the bigger opportunity. And the bigger opportunity is to get me in the door and then build the relationship over time. And so, I think our relationship with Eckerd has gone up every year in dollar amount and in volunteer hours because we dipped our toe in. And if somebody was expecting a big sponsorship, they would have probably been disappointed. But the lifetime value of that relationship is a lot bigger than walking out with a $2,500 sponsorship. So I don't want to be pitched. I want it to be a conversation. Let's talk about what we can bring to the table that will help your organization. Let's just have a conversation. And
how you positioned it initially really struck me. And that you're looking for a charity that wants to find your passion and ask you questions, find out what you want to do, and then demonstrate that there's alignment. Talk about that a little more.
Yeah, so I think everyone here on the call has said, we've got kind of this core set of values that drive our decision-making process. and what kind of organizations we want to be involved with and support. And so, you know, a lot of these are just really broad. So I'll take another entity support as an example. The American Heart Association pitches me every year. But they can never, I mean, I know heart disease is bad, right? Like we can all agree on that, but I don't know where I fit into their programs. I don't know how I can add value other than giving a check to this kind of broad topic of heart disease. I want to know, am I helping with child obesity, or, you know, you got to bring it down to where does this align with what I want to do? And going back to Eckerd for a minute, I think the value of that relationship has gotten bigger because, you know, I've been in the stockroom off of Ulmerton sorting clothes. I've seen and been exposed to it, and I can directly correlate how that impacts me emotionally to where my time, talents, and treasures are going.
Norman, tell me about that good meeting where a nonprofit or a missionary found out about your passion before they presented their needs.
You know, it's interesting is that it would be my guess. It would be my guess that probably 90, and I'll be very conservative. I would say 99.9, but let's say 90. I would probably say 90% of the people that you're approaching already know or can discern within a matter of minutes whether or not you're there just for a check. If you're there just for a check, and I know this is going to sound harsh, I'm probably not the right person for you. So really, if they're just looking for a check, we could have, I could have done some research on the internet. We could have wired the funds and saved 2-3 hours on the meeting. But again, that's not who we are. I agree with, Tim, it's a relationship. So I think it's like everything else. I mean, they're probing questions. So, like you said, the average person, our company supports 7.2, nonprofits. Okay, well then, and they're a good target for you. So probably I would be asking, I'm sure, Roy, I'm sure you support other nonprofits. Can you share with me where your heart is with those nonprofits? Because if I don't understand where you're at, all you're doing is just, you're just pitching me, and even if it can be softball, it can be baseball, whatever you're pitching, I understand that. But if you're not asking a lot of due diligence questions to understand where I'm coming from and where my passions are, and do they line up with yours, I think that's going to be a big challenge. And that's usually what somebody will do is they'll understand how do we give, and how long have those relationships been in place. So, because you can tell at the end of the day, if I say we're giving to these, eight charities, these nonprofits, these missions, and these 4, we've been doing it for 10 years. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where our heart is as an organization, So, and usually you can delineate that. A lot of times you can delineate that into, are you more focused on children? Are you more focused on adults? Our combination obviously being families. So that's really how I think that I understand it better, is somebody that is trying to understand me first. The old Stephen Covey, seek first to be understand, then to be understood. These are just, I'd love to tell you these are, things that, are just incredible thoughts. It's like, no, these have been around for about 2,000 years. So, if you can figure out how to listen, and ask the right questions, you can pretty quickly discern what direction somebody's heading in. And then really it's like, okay, if I'm headed in this direction and you're headed in this direction, okay, you got to figure out somehow to close that gap. Okay, because that's what I'm looking for is that how to, but if my needs are here, okay, and your needs are here, and it's a small gap, all I'm looking for, what Tim, sort of, alluded to is how do I line up with that? So if we, American Heart Association, American Lung Association, I mean, we, a lot of times the same thing is that I definitely grasp the magnitude of that. But unless you can tell me how I line up with what you're trying to accomplish, I'm just a grain of sand, on the beach. And I really don't, again, we get back to that making a difference. If I can't help you make a difference, then really, I don't think there really is a match if I'm not helping you make a difference, because that's essentially at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for is are you making a difference? How are you making a difference? And then how can I help you make that difference?
Yeah, that's the next point I want to get to. Louise, do you expect to be asked for a gift the first time you meet with a nonprofit?
Am I what? I'm sorry.
Do you expect to be asked for a gift the first time you meet with a nonprofit?
So we're not as big time as the other guys are. So yeah, usually, because that's why people are coming to talk to us in the first place. I mean, yes, we've had to say no because they haven't had it together. They don't understand what our mission is. And I mean, I think that we're pretty clear in everything that we do. So I don't have outside influences coming to us and happening to turn them down on a constant basis as much as the other gentlemen probably do.
Mm-hmm. But you expect somebody, if you take a meeting, you've done your research, you know who they are, they come in, they build a relationship, they demonstrate their passion, they find out about your passion. If they walk out of that meeting without asking for a gift, will you take another meeting? Maybe.
I mean, I don't really honestly know how to answer that because we'd probably give it to them if they're in line with everything that we do.
Right.
I mean, even if they didn't ask, we'd probably just given it to them because, what is it that I told you in the email that only takes a little bit from a lot of us to make a difference. So
That's right.
even if you don't ask, if we know that what you're doing falls in line with us, I will hunt you down and I will make you take money. So,
I love it.
I'm different than the other guys, but I mean,
But
ours is so centrally, it's so based within our county though, and it's for a specific reason. And even when I went to our board of directors the first time and said, look, we've got a huge need for this in Brevard County, I will never forget one of the board of directors looking at me, and he wasn't doing it in a derogatory way. He was trying to make a point to me because after I made the pitch about, getting the Realtor Association involved and raising funds for the homeless children in Brevard County 9 years ago, I remember Dan Barber looking at me and saying, we all have something that we're passionate about. It might be Alzheimer's, it might be cancer, it might be pets, and I didn't understand what it was that he was saying at the time in the meeting. But I've learned over the course of time that yes, everybody has their passion. But I think that one thing that makes it so easy for us is because ours is so clear, because it's specifically children and families in need. And we do only keep it within Brevard County. So I think that that's what makes it so easy for us. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it makes it easier for us.
Sure. And people come to you more with knowing that focus and purpose.
Exactly.
And so you get more of a fit because you're so qualified. Now,
we've had to turn down applications too, just simply because either they weren't formed under a 501c3, or they didn't have a direct mission, or we just didn't feel comfortable with them. Like what Norman was saying, if you don't have it together, we're sorry, but we just don't have that level of trust with you,
Very good. Very good. Tim, what about you? Do you expect to be asked when you take a meeting?
I do. In fact, I won't take the meeting if I haven't already kind of gone through the mental iteration of, am I willing to write them a check? So I definitely do it. It may not be that we agree on what that's going to look like in that meeting. But yeah, if I take the meeting, I've agreed to at least test drive and do something to kind of see how the relationship starts, and if I can see value in it, or are they going to treat me like just another donor, or if I show up at their event, is somebody going to come up and say hello and try and engage me and get me involved and lift up kind of the emotional intensity of wanting to do more. So yeah, the answer is yeah. I've pretty much made up my mind. I'm gonna probably do something for you.
And here's the interesting thing with that, if I could jump in here. So I've been in meetings before. I think one of the questions is, should you be afraid to ask for money? As far as I'm concerned, if you believe in your mission, you should never, ever be ashamed or afraid of asking for money. It's just the way it is.
You're going to have me up and down and dancing here.
And
there are books written recommending to fundraisers to wait 2 or 3 meetings before they make an ask. And I have always thought a lot of times you lose gifts because people expect to be asked. You honor them by the ask, right?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. And the other thing is, I've been in meetings before where I've been asked to attend on behalf because I was doing the introduction, and I've seen them slide depending on where you're at, on a lot of money, but slide a $60,000 check across the table and say, here's the money. I've got things to do, and I'll never forget this. One of the best people that I've ever been in meetings with slid a check back. Said, I'm not here for that. I'm here for way more than that. I want you. Sure, do I want your money? Yeah, sure, I want your money. But the fact of the matter is I'm not here to get a check. I'm here to get you. And I'm like going, what do you do?
That's powerful.
You are my new vice president of sales.
That's powerful.
Hey, Roy, can I chime in on that for a minute? Because he's making a great point. What Norman's talking about is really kind of very. You got to understand. We all said we vetted you before we will take a meeting, so we know it's aligned. We know. I mean, I got a lot of gray hairs in this beard. I know why you're coming to talk to me. And what I don't want to do is exactly what you said. I don't want to meet with you 3 times. I do want to get a feel for the relationship, but I want you to be smart, be brief, and be gone.
Let me write that down.
Because time is important. And if we've got to have 2, 3, 4 meetings to figure out if this is a good fit, it's probably not, quite honest. So, yeah, make the ask. I may not agree to whatever you're doing, but when you said wait 3 or 4 times, I don't know if you see I was shaking my head no, because that's my nightmare.
I am in 100% agreement, and it is. I've always said, and I tell our team the story of Napoleon, and he'd taken this city. All the generals came in and asked for the spoils of war, and some young lieutenant comes in at the end and said, I want you to give me the entire city. And all the other generals laughed, and Napoleon said, no, bring me the deed. And he signed it over to him. He said, you honor me by the magnitude of your ask. And just like Norman said and Louise said, people are honored by the ask. You can get it wrong. You can ask for too much. You can ask for too little. And so there's a little bit of science that goes into that. We're going to be talking about that in our next First Friday. But supporters, donors, funders, they expect to be asked. And to not do it really does a disservice. Talk to me. I'm going to go back to Louise for a minute. Louise,
You
when you
scare me.
are, I'm giving you a heads up, but when you are considering a request, and you touched on this, how Stanley sometimes sends you handwritten letters from some of the folks that you guys have gotten into homes and that kind of thing. Talk to me about the kind of impact report that you expect in order to make another gift, to make that second gift, which I think is, I always tell our team, it's not about the first gift, it's the second, because that means you've got somebody that really understands and you guys are connecting and making it work. So talk to me how you get that second gift. What's the impact report look like?
I keep my voices in my head keep talking to me and saying that you'd be better off going back over to Norman and Mr. Love, because I'm just
gonna
not
get
as
them.
big
I'm
time
gonna
as you
get them.
guys are. What?
I said, I'll get back to them. Don't worry.
Oh, I know. They're so much better, well versed in this than I am. I mean, I'm just a realtor,
But
I don't know
notes?
how to
What
describe
about
it
numbers?
because
What about numbers? I mean, our financial reports on, and again, could be a one pager on the number of lives impacted by the last gift that was made.
I can pitch in too, Louise, to tell you some of the things
Thank you.
we've sent.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, and what we typically do is we do focus on how many youths that we've served with the gift over the period of time, from when we first received the check till usually we run it by, we try to run it by fiscal year if it's easier to report on that. But sometimes it's between the application periods because they have certain periods when they look at applications. And then we try to always attach to it a success story, because I think that the individual story is sometimes better than the numbers. You want to see the numbers. They want to see that their money has impacted as much as possible. But I always think a personal story or a video or card from a particular donor is easier for the person to grasp. It's like when you hear bad statistics and they tell you how many hundreds of thousands of people are impacted by this horrible disaster, which is awful. But it's that one story that you see with the person crying about everything they've lost or everything they've gained in this situation that I think speaks more. So that's definitely something. And we're Eckerd is pretty templated about that kind of stuff anyway. But I think that's the kind of stuff that they would look for in their letters of impact.
Those are definitely the things that keep us moving forward, is seeing the impact. And I mean, yes, as the foundation that distributes the money, we want to definitely see the numbers and see where everything is going, because that we've got the, fiduciary to do that. But to get those personal stories, like Stanley said, so that we can share it to our membership. I mean, at our big fundraiser that we normally have every year, we have a PowerPoint presentation with those thank you notes that are handwritten from children continually playing through the function. And people can look up on the monitors and see those and see the handwritten notes. And that's what really drives it home to the people that contribute to our success.
That's good. That's good.
And don't underestimate your importance, Louise.
The what?
What you do. I said, don't underestimate your importance. I think
we've all got it. I'm just saying I'm not as well versed as the other gentlemen are, because like I said, I'm
Well, Norman, talk to me about what you expect for impact reports. What kind of validation of your gift are you looking for? Louise is wanting to hear from you, so.
Believe me, Louise, I'm sitting here learning from you. It was so funny is if you hear this, that's me taking notes. So I appreciate that. The interesting thing is I have two philosophies. One, when I give, I'm compelled to give because I prayed about it. And I give. Now, what you do with that money is up to you. I've given you the money. So, being a follower of Jesus Christ, it tells me that you are now held to a higher standard than I am because I've given you the money. And if you're a poor steward of your money, obviously you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of that. And usually it's going to be, you're like Roy, you mentioned, you're only going to get one check. I'm not necessarily looking for validation, but I do say, unfortunately, there's a component of that. Like, we've been sponsors of kids through Compassion International for 25 years. I mean, we get every month, I've seen kids grow up and then graduate high school and go on to do things in Nicaragua or Zimbabwe and stuff like that. And we get those every month. And my kids saw that growing up, and then we support the same group, in our company. So we post them on the board in the break room, and people can see the letters they're writing to us. But I can tell you this, probably the most powerful thing I've ever seen in my entire life was I was at IJM, International Justice Mission in DC, visiting their organization. I was in there visiting my daughter, and they asked me to come in. So I came in, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and they had their group around the world. So you had somebody from Nicaragua on a video call, and we were all in this conference room, and they're saying, hey, we're trying to get 20 kids, off of this, sex trafficking, then in South Africa, they've got, 55 kids in a slave labor camp. And then the Ukraine, they've got 9 girls that are being sex trafficked. And all these calls are coming in from all over the world. And they're saying, we're doing it this Friday. Please pray for us. This Friday, our team is going in to rescue these 15 children that have been taken from their families, and they're in a sweatshop. And I'm just sitting there listening, like, going, this is unbelievable. I mean, it's, and I'm like, and here's what's the first thing that pops in my head, which is exactly what you guys want to hear, is I'm not giving enough. I'm not giving enough.
But it was those real life stories that makes a difference, isn't it?
It really is. And then, when I get the emails from you, and it's like, Roy, it's like, hey, we need 20 laptops. To Tim's point, it's tangible. It's tangible. I need 20 laptops. There's 15 families that are going back and need this. If I can show that, or I can feel, and I don't need to show, just as if I can feel again that I'm contributing to moving the needle, then I'm in. And I certainly would appreciate the letters and stuff like that. But really, as long as I know you're being a good steward of what I'm giving you, and I can see it going here, going there, and as an organization you are moving the needle. I know in a little way, I don't mind being a little grain on a sand on the beach, because I know that grain is going to combine with Tim and Louise and everybody else, and it's going to hold back the rip current on the kids and the families that need help.
That's good. Well, Tim.
Roy?
Yes.
Roy.
Who's this?
It's Louise.
Hey.
Listening to Norman, I mean, when I started this in 2011 or whatever year it was simply because I happened to be home one night on a Sunday night. I was in the kitchen making dinner, and I just had the television on in the background. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. It's just too negative. But 60 Minutes happened to be on in the background, and they were doing a segment on homelessness in Central Florida. And when I heard the word home, being a realtor, that's when I went out and sat down and watched television. It blew my mind. I mean, here I was 40 some years old, and I never knew, honestly, that we had homeless children within the United States. I mean, my head was in the sand until I saw that story on television. And that's what pushed me to go and stand in front of our board of directors and say, how many houses have we all come in and out of over the past few years? No, Brevard County was #1 in the nation for foreclosure. And I looked at my board of directors and I said, how many of us have walked into a house, showing a house, and seen the little notches that are, the pencil marks going up the walls, measuring the children's heights, and then looking around that house and wondering, where did those families go? You know, how many of those houses are we in now where those children are literally homeless, and none of us ever stop to think about that? So it's getting the word out, and it's talking about it, and it's you know, just doing every little bit, that everything that you can to make a difference. That it's
Wow.
that video alone was what made me realize that there was something bigger out there than just foreclosures and short sales and my day-to-day life, you know? So,
Yeah, and Roy, if I can jump in, one of the things I'll share with you, when we did the trivia a couple weeks ago, and we were, with Eckerd, and you had all the trivia on there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the trivia questions was how many people in Tampa Bay, how many kids in Tampa Bay are abandoned on a daily basis? Well, first of all, that question just threw me. I'm like, abandoned? Well, I don't know there were kids really being abandoned every single day. I would expect it, every month. And then the trivia was these numbers, I guess 2 to 3, and then the answer was 6 to 8. And I remember getting off that call going 6 to 8 a day.
Mm.
And I remember coming home to my wife and saying, do you know how many kids are abandoned on a daily basis in Tampa? And it's like, and she's like, and she took a guess too. I'm like, no, it is 6 to 8. And I was just, it was like when I found out that Tampa is the number 3 city in America for sex trafficking. And it's like, when you start hearing things like that, I think it falls back to are we, is the organization that I'm partnering with, are they making a difference in that,
Powerful. Tim, before we open it up to a few questions, and we've got a few in the chat room, but talk to me about the kind of impact that you and your company look for in your giving.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I agree with what Louise and Norman said as far as kind of we do want to know it. We kind of intuitively know it. It does help to quantify it. That's one thing I do like is, if I give money, how many people did I feed with that money, or how many people did I help with whatever the cause is. But to me, it's a little bit different, in terms of kind of the feedback. And so to me, it's about engagement. It's not necessarily just about, hey, you fed these 300 people. It's about how do you engage me on a guttural level to where I want to continue this relationship. And that can be done a lot of ways. Sometimes it is quantifiable. There are causes that I give to that, I probably will never get quantified specifically because they're working on things like mentorship or, empowering people to do service. That, it's a force multiplier, right? So I'm helping kids learn how to help kids, or I'm helping students learn how to give back in their communities and start nonprofits. It's not always tangible, is what I guess I'm saying is, so you really kind of have to look at how do you engage us? Because what we've talked a lot about is, the ask and the meeting, but you also got to think about what happens after that, the fulfillment of what you committed to and the engagement. And are you going to create a bond with me versus am I a vendor? I don't want to feel like a vendor. And I see so many mistakes of people pitching me. So Roy, I'm going to pivot just a little bit and say to development professionals, don't overthink this. You don't have to have a ton of brochures. If it's something that you're passionate about and it lines up with my values, don't bring a team. Bring 1, maybe 2 people. As Norman said, let's have a conversation. But I'm always amazed how many drop the ball after that. So if I'm going to test drive you, I'm not going to give you a big check. I'm probably going to test drive you. And there's no follow-up. It would probably, you guys are professionals, but I bet 50% of companies don't send me a thank you card or a note, email. So they drop off, right? There's no bond, there's no engagement. So I would just encourage you to, instead of looking at it, do I want to feel some quantity or quantifiable number? What I want to feel is engaged. I want to feel like, we've started something or we've created a bond, and it's the start of a relationship. So you may do that with numbers, you may do it with a statistic, but you can also do it by your event. Take me on and introduce me to some of your clients who are being impacted, that kind of thing. So I probably didn't answer your question.
No, that's very good. You did.
But I think it's really important that it's not always just, here's a sheet of what your stuff did.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I can
powerful.
see that thank you note makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah, I would probably put that number at 70%. We don't get a thank you, and it's not the. And let me be clear, I'm not looking for the thank you. I'm really not. I didn't give to get it. I didn't give to get. That you don't give to get. So, but I do have to say I am human, and it is nice. But I would probably 70% we don't get any response back from.
Wow. Amazing lessons we have learned here today. I want to open it up, take just a few more minutes. I know we've got some great members of our team that have some questions. So please, I want to open it up. Some of you had some questions in the chat room that I know I didn't get to. Would you mind shouting it out and having our panel throw some answers at you?
Hey, Roy, this is Hope.
Hey,
I've
Hope.
heard the guys say quite a bit that time is important. So let's say an organization wants to follow up with a face-to-face thank you, drop off something personally. Is that something you look forward to, or is that something that you think maybe takes too much time? Or just could you share your general thoughts about that?
Real quick, if somebody stopped by and wanted 15 minutes of my time to say thank you, and they actually kept it to 15 minutes, and they stopped by with just a thank you, I think that would be. I would say, in the last 25 years, I think I can remember one person doing that.
Good question, Hope. We're going to do some of that. Anybody else? All right, well, we don't have any other brave takers today. But I want to thank our panel. This has just been amazing. I'm looking through all the comments. Everybody just thank you. The best session we've done. Of course, I've done 8 others this year, so you guys are the best session of the year. So thank you for being part of this. It meant so much to us. For those of our team on the phone, next month, December the 4th, be there. Our first Friday, we're going to talk about how you prepare for the meeting. And you learned today about how important that meeting is and what donor expectations are. And so we're going to talk about how to prep for that and really have great conversations that lead to raising money for our kids around the country. So with that, I want to again thank our panel. We are so appreciative. I want to thank everybody that joined us today. We'll see you next Friday at First Friday, December the 4th. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, Louise, so much.
Thank you all.
See you in the end.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tim.